everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name's Meredith Phillips, and in case you missed it, last week I posted an insanely long vlog with the announcement that I have signed on with a literary agent. I have a literary agent. I have an agent. She's mine. She belongs to me. No, just kidding. Okay, super exciting. I'm still sort of like, really? Are you sure this is happening? Okay, I guess this is happening. It's been really fun so far. I mean, nothing's really happened yet. We were just like, yay, yay! And then like, we're just sort of like hanging out and waiting. She's working currently on my edit letter. So I'm gonna get that here in the next couple days. But yeah, I'm really excited. It was very exciting to share that video with you guys. Thank you again for all of the excitement and congratulations in the comments. I really appreciated it. And it just felt good. It felt like we're finally like moving on to the next step. So I'm really looking forward to sharing all of the things as they come and all of the ups and downs and everything in between. So for this video though, I wanted to do a couple different things. First off, if you looked at that vlog, the timestamp on the vlog, and you were like, an hour and a half of this, girl, I do not think so. That's totally fair. This video, I wanted to give you sort of a quick overview of like the timeline of events, because when it's in vlog form, it's a little hard to tell. I mean, I had like dates in there and stuff, but it's still a little hard to tell, like, was this 2 days later, a week later, a month later, you know? So we'll just go through the dates for how this querying all ended up. So you have a better idea about that. I'll go over my final querying stats for this project for the folks that like the numbers. And then I also did get a few questions, so we'll do a little Q&A at the end. I'll put timestamps in the description as well, so if you want to skip around, you feel free to do so. So let's start way back in mid-January of 2024, a year and a half ago. That is when I started seriously working on this book, the one that I queried, the one that got me the agent. I'd been doing like some back of the brain kind of brainstorming toward the end of 2023, but once I started querying the previous project at the beginning of 2024, then I could jump full-time, or put my full brain into working on brainstorming this new project. I worked on the brainstorming and just sort of like general note-taking for about a month. Mid-February 2024, I jumped into officially outlining that project. If you want to know a little more detail on how I like to outline, I have a whole video on that. I'll put that linked below for you as well. By the time we got to April 1st of 2024, I started the first draft. I spent a good chunk of time doing the outlining and brainstorming, so for me, first drafting goes pretty fast. I finished that in a month. May to early July, I was working on a second draft. For me, this is usually the biggest time portion, just because taking a first draft to a second draft is usually the part where you're doing, or at least for me, I'm doing a huge amount of like developmental editing. So you're cutting scenes, you're writing new stuff, you're putting in new characters, you're taking out characters that don't belong there, whatever. You're doing a lot of like major changes at that stage. So that always takes me the longest. It's always the most it just feels very overwhelming at that point, because there's still so much that needs to be fixed and changed. I gave draft 2, the completed draft 2, to my critique partners kind of as I was finishing it a little bit. They read through it, gave me their feedback. I started working on draft 3, which was incorporating their feedback in, when was that? Mid-August to early October. I did enter this manuscript into the Smooch Pit mentorship program. The entry period for that was the beginning of September. I had no idea like what my chances were for being selected, obviously. So while we were waiting to hear the results of the mentorship program, I just was continuing to work on this draft 3. I was still doing quite a bit of like taking out characters, refining things. We were rewriting the ending for like the 3rd time. In mid-October, I found out that I was selected for the mentorship program, which was crazy. And my mentor and I decided the ending still was not there, which was fair. I totally agreed. So I spent a good chunk of like October into November scrapping like the last quarter of the book pretty much and just rewriting from scratch. Sent that to her at the beginning of December. Yeah, beginning of December. She read the new version, gave me additional feedback. I worked on implementing that new feedback. And then finally, in like mid-January, I was ready for beta readers. I had 3 beta readers who got through the book. I've been pretty fast. I think everyone was done within like 3 weeks. It was pretty quick. And then I was working on implementing their feedback and polishing up the few last things that they felt were not quite there yet. In mid-February, the mentorship program ended and there was an agent showcase. This is important for what comes later. The agent showcase was an opportunity for agents to look at the projects we had worked on. There was a special section of the website set up for this. It was like password protected. We had our query letter. We had the first, I think, 5 pages on there, and some other information about the project. Agents could scroll through, look at all the things, and if they wanted to see the full manuscript, they could leave a comment and ask for that. I got 4 full requests from the Smooch Pit Mentorship Program, which was super exciting, but I wasn't quite done with the manuscript at that point. I had just finished the beta reader feedback by the time we got those results. And I spent all of March doing like final polishing work. I went through this book 3 additional times. The first time I went through to do a final pass for character interiority. That was one thing that I felt like I want to be better at that so bad. I feel like that's one weakness in my writing where I really need other people right now, at least, to point out like, hey, you need more here. So I went through the whole book specifically looking for places to enhance the interiority and the emotion and all that kind of stuff. I went through again and did a giant line editing pass, got rid of a bunch of words, which was so good. And then I went through one last time at the very end of March to do a final proofread pass where I was just looking for typos, punctuation errors, little teeny fiddly things like that. By the end of March of 2025, the book was finally completed as far as I could take it. I sent out the full requests to the agents who had requested from the mentorship program at that point, and then March 29th, I started sending out queries. On April 30th, almost exactly a month later, I got my first full request from like cold queries, and then about a month later after that, May 22nd, I got a second full request. On May 29th, 2 months after I'd started querying, I got the email from the first agent asking for a call on which she wanted to discuss representation. I was sent spiraling out of my mind. We set the call for June 5th. It was in fact an offer call. If you watched the vlog, I was like not 100% sure. I was pretty sure it was going to be an offer call, but we had some other things that it maybe could have been. I didn't want to get my hopes up and then be crushed. So it was in fact an offer call. We had that call on June 5th. I sent out a message to all of the agents at that point that had my query letter or a full manuscript and said, hey, I've got an offer on the table. What are you doing over there? I gave all of the agents a deadline of June 18th, about 2 weeks after I had had the call, to reply back. If you want to make an offer, if you want to pass, you better do it by June 18th. Between the day that I sent out that message, June 5th, and the next day, June 6th, I got 5 additional full requests. On June 13th, a few days before that deadline, I got an email from agent number 2 who asked to extend the deadline to June 20th. I went ahead and did that. This was an agent I was definitely interested in, so I wanted to give her time to finish reading, etc., etc. On June 18th, I got another message from her asking to bump the deadline again to June 24th, which sent me into an absolute panic, but it was fine. So we bumped it again to the final deadline of June 24th. At that point, there was one other agent that I emailed again to be like, hey, we bumped the deadline. I haven't heard back from you. Just FYI, in case you're interested, you have a little more time. I ended up getting a request for a phone call from agent number 3 on June 21st. And the very next day, June 22nd, I got a request for a call from agent number 2. I scheduled the call with agent number 2 for June 24th. The third agent wasn't available to talk until the 25th, the morning of the 25th. So I talked with her on the morning of the 25th. In the end, I did end up going with agent number number 2, the one that had requested the deadlines. She had the best sort of like vision for the book. She seemed to know best which editors, publishing houses, etc., to submit it to. I also had a lot of confidence in the agency. We'll get into a little bit more of that in a little bit. So that's the complete timeline of events for this whole book writing and querying journey. My final querying stats are, not including the requests from or like anything to do with the mentorship program, I did end up sending out 50 queries. I received 26 form rejections, which is just about half. 10 ended up being CNRs, closed no response. I never heard from the agents, so I just went on Query Tracker eventually and closed them out. I ended up getting 4 personalized rejections just on the query letter. I got 3 sort of semi-personalized rejections on the query letter. I had the 4 full requests from the mentorship program. I had 2 full requests before the offer. After the offer, I got an additional 5 requests. So total, including the mentorship program requests, I had 11 fulls out. If you don't count the mentorship program, 11 out of 50 is about a 14% request rate. If you do include the Smooch Pit stuff, that was about a 20% request rate, which is pretty good. I feel like in the past, people used to say a lot of things in the past. I think 20% was sort of like, oh, this is the one you should aim for pre-COVID. After COVID, who knows? It doesn't really matter. But a 20%, 11%, 20% request rate is pretty decent. I did get 3 personalized rejections on the fulls. I got 1 semi-personalized rejection on the full. I got 2 form rejections on the full. And I only got 1 no response on the full. There was one of the agents from the mentorship program who had requested that I never heard anything from. So I don't know what happened there, but that's fine. And then in the end, I did end up with 3 offers of representation, which is wild. So you might be wondering, what happens next? What happens next? Well, I'm currently waiting as I'm filming this to get my edit letter from my agent, and that will have some amount of revision in it. We talked a little bit about what revision she saw being necessary for the book before it goes on submission, but she really was like, I don't see a whole lot. She didn't mention any kind of like major plot changes, character changes, anything like that. It was all like smaller, like, ooh, in this scene, let's like boost this aspect, or, you know, like little things like that. So those kinds of little minor changes on a scene level, plus any like line or copy edits that she sees, I'm not entirely sure at this point, but I don't think revisions are going to take all that long. I know sometimes, you know, if an agent is like, ooh, we gotta like overhaul this subplot, or we need to fix this character arc, you know, if there's a bigger fix like that, you might be working on revisions for several months. That's not unusual. But I mean, again, I haven't seen the letter yet, so who knows, maybe we'll be surprised. But if it's relatively minor stuff, I feel pretty good about, like, I can get through that generally in a couple weeks. I don't see it taking a huge amount of time, maybe a month at most. After that, I assume I'll send the finished project back to her for her to review maybe one more time. And if she sees any other little nitpicky things, we might do another little quick look at it. But otherwise, once the revisions are finished with my agent, then we go on submission. Going on submission is, I've heard, super exciting, but also incredibly horrific. So looking forward to that. It's basically where you're querying editors at publishing houses, trying to get them to buy the book. But the thing is with this, I've had a couple people comment like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for submission vlogs. I will be vlogging the submission process, but it's different from querying. You'll probably only get like one vlog like at the very end. When it's querying, it's me going directly to the agents being like, please, here's my stuff, you know? And there's a lot on my end of like researching agents and doing query tracker, blah, 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 and fixing up the query letter and batching who I'm sending things to and what kind of responses am I getting, and oh my gosh, I got a full request and blah. There's all that kind of stuff, right? Which is really fun and easy to vlog. But one of the agent's main jobs is to do that for you when it comes to going to the actual publishing houses. She's going to be the one sending those emails. She's going to be the one putting together batch lists of like, okay, first we're going to send to these people. If that doesn't work out, we'll send to these people. We'll send to these people after that, blah, 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 blah. She's the one that's going to be getting responses. And the responses are either going to be, hey, thanks for sending us this, but we're not interested, or they're going to be interested. Like querying, most of it is going to be rejection. So there's really not going to be any big news to share with you guys until one of two things happens. Either I get a book deal, or the book dies on submission. In other words, nobody wants it, and we've submitted it to everyone possible, and we just gotta shelve it. So I'll share everything with you when I can, but a lot of times it's best not to talk about a huge amount of what's going on, and really there's not gonna be anything to talk about. It'll just be me being like, I got more rejections this week, or whatever, like that's kind of it. So I'll vlog it, but you'll probably just get one vlog when it's over. Either it's dead or I have a book deal. I think that's probably going to be how it goes. I mean, we'll see. I've obviously never done this before, so maybe it'll be different. But from what I've heard, I feel like that's probably a pretty good guess as to how things will go. And there is a very good chance it will die on submission. Not to be negative, but I also I want all of our hopes and expectations to be in line with reality, okay? There's a lot of writers who get the agent, they polish the book up, they send it out, and it just doesn't sell for a variety of reasons, okay? And that's fine. We've got another project that I've been working on. I'm going to be working on that while this other book is out with editors. That's crazy, but anyway. So if it doesn't go anywhere, that's okay. I've got another one that will be ready to go out hopefully when this one is done. So with that said, let me get into a few of these questions I received. So first of all, one person asked a great question, why 2 weeks? I got that first offer of representation, and then I had a 2-week period where I could reach out to other agents and try to get them to see if they were interested, right? 2 weeks has just become sort of the industry standard. I think pre-COVID, the window was maybe a little shorter. I've heard some people used to do like maybe 7 to 10 days, but nowadays everyone has so much on their plate that giving them 2 weeks is pretty standard. They need that time to be able to read your book if they have it, and then make a decision on whether they want to make you an offer. You can ask for more time. You could ask for less time. You could do 10 days if you wanted, especially if you're coming up on like holidays. I've seen some people who get an offer of representation on like December 18th. And agents are like, they're on Christmas vacation or New Year's, they're taking like a holiday break, whatever. They're not going to necessarily be in the office. So in cases like that, if you're coming up on a major holiday period, you could ask for 3 weeks off the bat and just use that. Or I've also seen people who are like, I had an offer call like the day before I went on a 2-week vacation. And so, if you've got something like that going on, you can definitely ask for more time. That's not a problem, or it shouldn't be a problem. If you ask for more time and the offering agent like pushes back and they're like, no, I need a decision within a week, that's a red flag. So you're making a business decision here, right? You need to take the time you need to take. And unless you're asking for something absolutely ridiculous, like 3 months or something, all of the involved parties should be willing to let it take the time it's going to take. Another question, I kind of already answered this, but it was, how close to submission are you? Like I said, I think we're pretty close. She had on our call at least fairly minor revisions, which I don't think will take me all that long. And once it's done and ready to go. So hopefully it'll be out in editors' inboxes sooner rather than later. The next question was the most unexpected part of querying. What was the most unexpected part? I don't know if I had like anything super... there were unexpected elements to what happened, but I've queried before, so I kind of knew how this worked. I felt confident about what I was doing and the steps I was taking. So I don't know if there was any part of this that was super unexpected. I was definitely surprised at the number of offers I got. I was happy to just get one. I think any writer would be happy just to get one. To get 3? I was shocked. I was really surprised at that. I think just because again, like, I know we've talked about this a lot on my channel, but like historical romance is not a bestseller right now. And so an agent really has to love the project and believe they can sell it if they're going to take it on, and to have 3 people believe they could do something with it was definitely unexpected. The next question was about the agency and the agent and all of that. It was the agency I signed on with, Madwoman Literary Agency, is a smaller agency. It's a newer agency. My agent Alex is also newer to the game. She started agenting back in, I think, like a year and a half ago. She's not been doing this for a huge long time. And the second part of the question was that first agent that offered similar? So yes, Madwoman is a newer agency. They got started in 2021, but the founder has prior agenting experience. She was with another literary agency before this and had plenty of training and experience there, and then she started her own agency, which isn't uncommon. I feel like not a lot of agents do that, but a lot of agencies are started by agents who had previous experience somewhere else. There can be pros and cons to newer agents. Obviously, if they're new, they don't have the level of experience of someone who's been doing this for like 10 years. But typically, if an agent is new and they're getting signed on to an agency to work, there should be someone at the agency sort of mentoring them, helping them figure out how things work and all that kind of stuff. And so again, Danielle, the person who founded the agency, is that person here. You can also look at the sales information on places like Publishers Marketplace. It's a new agency, but have they made any kind of sales? And they have. So, and you can go look if you want and see the types of sales that they've been making. It's pretty good. I feel confident in the agency in that, like, people there know what they're doing. This isn't just some random person who was like, I'm gonna start a literary agency even though I have no experience. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to be a part of it. The first agency was a little bit different. It was kind of the opposite in a lot of ways. It was an slightly older agency. It'd been around for about 10 or 12 years. I kind of forget off the top of my head. Same with the agent. It was co-founded by that agent that offered, the first offering agent. She had prior experience, again, at a separate agency, and then started her own with a partner. So in that sense, they were the more experienced group. They were the ones that had the older agency, et cetera, but the sales numbers were nowhere near as good. Which if the agency has been around for a long time, you would expect to see a certain number of deals, being made, and I just didn't see that. It doesn't mean that it wasn't a good agent or she couldn't have made deals. Also, deals don't have to be reported to Publishers Marketplace. So they could have had more going on that just wasn't being reported. I don't know what the rationale for agents or agencies is behind not reporting it to Publishers Marketplace. I'm not sure. I don't know how all of that works, but yeah, I had more confidence in this second agent and agency. The next question is a great one. I'll put a little resource or something below. The question was, what did you ask the authors that the agents provided as references? So one of the things you definitely want to do with an agent who is offering is ask them for client references. They should be able to give you 2 or 3 names and emails of their current clients who are willing to talk to you via email. I've heard some people actually get on a call with these authors or other writers. I didn't really have time to do a call. Also, I would much rather prefer an email. But anyway, you can ask a variety of things. I'll leave a list of the questions I asked in the description, but basically you want to ask things that it's not, typically if you're giving a reference, it's not going to be somebody who's like, oh, they're terrible, don't go with them, right? It's going to be somebody who's had a good experience. So you're not necessarily looking for like, what's been your terrible experience with this agent? You're not going to get that. But you want to know things about like, what's their response time like? If you send them an email, if you send them a manuscript for review, how long do they take to get back to you? Does this agent prefer email or phone calls? There's not like a right or wrong answer to a lot of these questions. It just is a little more, is this agent's style going to work for you? So if they say, oh, this agent absolutely loves to get on the phone with me all the time, and you're like, oh, the phone calls give me so much anxiety, like, maybe that might be like a point against them, you know? So it's really just asking to figure out, do I think I'm gonna work well with this person? The next question was, when you reached out to the first agent to ask for an extension, how did she respond to that? And is it normal to get extensions or requests for deadline extensions? The first agent was very kind. If you're asking an offering agent for an extension on the deadline, they should be willing to do that. If they try to pressure you into making a decision faster than you're ready to do so, that's a red flag. So yeah, she was very kind. She said, yeah, sure, that's fine. You know, looking forward to hearing from you, whatever. So that wasn't a problem at all. In terms of if it's normal, I'm not sure how common it is to get extension requests. It's not uncommon, but maybe not like the most common thing. You can do it. It's not wrong. It's not out of the norm necessarily. I don't know what the numbers are though on that. The final question was, do you have any tips for someone about to start querying, and how did you keep yourself sane while querying? As to the second question, I didn't. I was a mess this whole time. So I don't know if I'm the one to give advice about staying sane during querying. I really struggled. I'm sure there's things that you could do, and I just didn't do any of them. I just kept checking Query Tracker like a maniac. I did do a video last year about like things I learned during querying from my first time querying. I'll link that below if you want to go check it out. I still stand by all of that. I think that's good advice. One thing though that I did do differently this time around, I'll tell you this. I did not personalize a single one of my query letters. The first time I tried to personalize all of them, and I think that was kind of a waste of time. I feel like I've been seeing more and more agents say like, you really don't need to do that. If you do, I don't think it counts against you in any way. It's just sort of like, usually the personalization isn't worth it. So what this is talking about, in case you're unfamiliar, is they often say in that opening paragraph where you're saying the genre, the age category, the title, the word count, all the metadata, you can include a personalization for that specific agent. So that could be saying, hey, you asked for books about killer robotic bunnies. That's my book. Oh my gosh, here you go. To show, it's supposed to show them like you've done your research, try to entice them with, you know, really specific things that they've asked for, and here you go, that's my book, right? So there's nothing wrong with doing that. But a lot of times what I've heard that personalization can get into is it's just people regurgitating their manuscript wish list. Hey, you're looking for fantasy romance with enemies to lovers? That's my book. Okay, well, that's a lot of books. That's not like a really specific aspect of your book. So, okay, like, good job, you read my website. Like, Again, it's not a bad thing. I've never seen an agent say like, oh, I can't believe they included that personalization. What a loser. Rejected. You know, I've never seen that, but it's just kind of a waste of space on the page. I think if you have a really specific query personalization, like, hey, I met you at a conference 3 months ago and you said you were interested in my book when it was ready, here it is. Like, if you have something really specific like that, I say go for it, definitely. Or if you have some really niche kind of match with something that they've asked for, I would put that in there. But otherwise, I just skipped it. And I still got an agent. So I don't think personalization is necessary, and I think you can skip it if you really don't have anything super compelling to say to them. Final question is from Alyssa, who wanted to know my hair care routine. Thank you. I get it cut once or twice a year, and I wash it every day. Don't come for me in the comments, okay? I know all of your, I tried for 6 months, like 2 years ago, for 6 months, I did every other day washing, and day 2 was just like grease ball, and I hated it so much. All right, this video I think is a little bit longer than I was anticipating, but here we are. Thank you once again for all of the well wishes and congratulations. I'm excited to share with you everything that comes after this. Real quick before we end, I need to do some shout outs. Thank you very much to my new members over on Patreon. Macy, Kata, and Morgan have all joined up up in the last like week or two, so thank you very much. And if any of you are interested in seeing what's going on over there, the link is always in the description. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, you can click the subscribe button. I usually post videos on Fridays. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye!